So have you guys heard this narrative around how robots and technology are taking over all the jobs human beings used to do? We've got robotic factory workers, we've got digital assistants, we even have AI salespeople closing deals as we speak. And although I think this theory is pretty far-fetched, it does have me thinking about my own job, and maybe you've been thinking about your job as well. How are we staying ahead of technology in the 21st century? And the funny thing is that we know what we need to be doing. We need to be doing the things that human beings can uniquely do, like creative projects and deep, exciting ventures. But the funny thing is that we've been distracted in this day and age now more than ever. With texts, tweets, social media, emails, we're not able to do the things that make us uniquely human because we're staying at the surface. So in this video, what I'm going to be covering is not what we need to be doing, because we know what we need to be doing. We need to focus on the how of going about doing it. That's exactly what I'm going to share with you in this video. How do we actually get the things done that we know we need to do in order to stay ahead and go deep? Let's go ahead and dive in. Hey, what's going on, you guys? It's Adam, your optimal living coach. As you guys know, on this channel, what we focus on is helping you flourish in your energy, work, and love. And in this video, we're going to be talking about how to go deep and actually get things done that you know you need to be doing. I'm going to be pulling a lot of ideas from my own work patterns, as well as from a book called Deep Work by Cal Newport. It's an awesome, amazing read, and I'm really excited to share those ideas with you guys. So let's hop into the first bright idea, which is really distinguishing between what deep work is and what shallow work is. So before we go into exactly what it is, I want to share with you guys some historic figures who have really been able to go deep and create amazing results. The first one, who's one of my favorites, is Carl Jung. He's a psychologist, psychotherapist who studied under Sigmund Freud and was actually his protege until he got older, and then he started formulating his own ideas about what he wanted to share with the world. And he was going against basically what Sigmund Freud was saying, and people at that time thought he was absolutely nuts. And Carl Jung knew that if he was going to go toe-to-toe with this giant, he needed to really refine his thoughts and get really concrete on his theories before he shared that with the world. So what he would do is he would travel to Zurich and basically live in this castle that was walled off from the outside world and go deep and really master his theories, his practices, his ideas, so that when he went toe-to-toe intellectually with Sigmund Freud, he knew that he could stand up to him. And I thought this is an amazing kind of concept and idea about how you need to go deep. And now you look at Carl Jung, and he's one of the icons of modern psychology. Another one that's more modern that you guys might know of is Bill Gates. Bill Gates, the founder and CEO, or previously acting CEO of Microsoft, would have what he would call was think weeks. And he'd basically go away to his cottage, walled off from the outside world, and just read and formulate his thoughts and manufacture new ideas from Microsoft. And that's what allowed him to stay ahead of a lot of the competitors in that software industry. And there's numerous other ones, but I wanted to introduce that concept because we all know about what deep work looks like, what deep thinking looks like. The definition of deep work is essentially being able to work in a non-distracted, focused manner that helps you go deep on ideas and projects that you know you need to be working on. It's essentially getting to the big, juicy topics that require all your mental faculties in order to push that project forward. The reverse of that is shallow work. Shallow work is basically staying surface level, the busy work that keeps you moving but not really moving things forward, right? We've all been in a time and place where we've been working on shallow work, like sending emails, having meetings that don't really have an agenda, pushing paper around, right? It's the non-cognitively demanding tasks that make us look busy but don't actually get things done. And we know if we stay there, we're never going to get to the point that we want to be. So we need to focus on deep work. And deep work, just to reiterate, is the focus, cognitively demanding, distraction-free work that really gets things done. Now you might ask, why is deep work important? Well, to stay ahead of technology and really move forward and become a mover and a shaker in today's modern world, you need to be able to do two things that Cal tells us in his book. First and foremost, you need to be able to master new skills quickly. Everything's changing so fast, you need to skill up quickly. And then secondly, you need to be able to produce at a high level consistently. And you can't do those two things if you're staying in the shallows, if you're doing shallow work. You need to go deep and be able to master cognitively demanding skills at a rapid pace. So that's why deep work is so important. That's why you and I need to work on mastering it. Now, the second bright idea that I want to share with you guys is the how. It's the philosophy and the theory behind actually practicing this stuff. And to open this up, I want to share with you a hilarious anecdote that I read from a blog post by a guy named Dr. Christensen. And he's an academic that was hired by Andy Grove, a previous CEO of IBM, a few decades ago, who at the time was, the microchip manufacturer of the world. They still are, but at the time they were the leaders, and they're having a bunch of little guys come up from underneath them and sell medium level chips at a much cheaper price. And so Andy Grove, the acting CEO, was nervous that they were going to throw IBM out of business. So in order to stay ahead, what they needed to do was figure out a way to combat the really low price chips other people were making. So Andy brought in Dr. Christensen and then basically said, how do I go about implementing and getting rid of these small time competitors? And Dr. Christensen said, well, what you got to do is X, Y, and Z. And Andy Grove kind of replied in a snarky way and said, you academics are so naive. I asked you how I need to go about doing this, and you told me what. I know what I need to do. I need you to tell me how to do it. And that's the same problem that we're facing today. We need to know the how. So in Cal Newport's book, Deep Work, he shares 3 modalities of how to actually go deep and implement deep work. Now, the first one I'm going to share with you is kind of extreme. It's the monastic kind of way about going about things, where you basically cut off the internet, cut off social media, cut off email and distractions, whatever is holding you back, and just spend all your time going deep. This is the Stephen King, locked away in the basement typing all day. This is the Henry David Thoreau going out into the woods and isolating himself from society. It's not really practical for a lot of us, but if you can afford it, that's really the ideal goal, where you're separated from everybody and just focusing on deep work. The next 2 theories that I want to share with you guys are a combination of theories that I use. So the first one is called the bimodal way of doing deep work. And the bimodal is basically deep on, deep off. You're spending 1, 2, 3 days at a time going deep into deep work, and then the other 2, 3, 4 days in kind of more shallow work. So you're spending a day or 2 at a time focused on big, juicy projects, and you're basically isolating yourself from social media, email, things like that. And then you're spending the other bulk of your week being able to, tend to the normal necessities of day-to-day living that you need to do. The third modality is really the rhythmic one, which I deploy on the most regular basis. It's essentially setting up repeatable blocks of time throughout your day that you're able to revisit deep work. Jerry Seinfeld was he's a comedian who kind of really solidified this theory, where somebody asked him, how do I write jokes on a repeated basis and become a good comedian? Well, Seinfeld said, you need to write a lot of jokes, and the way I do this is that I write a joke every single day, and when I write a joke, I put an X on the calendar to make sure that I don't break the chain. And the longer the chain gets, the less you want to break the chain, and you end up doing something every single day. The rhythmic way of doing things is setting up a block of time that you revisit for deep work every single day, and then go about your day. I do this in the morning, where I have an hour and a half set aside every single morning to do deep work, and then I go visit the normal things that I need to do. The reality is that depending on your schedule, your job, your family, whatever commitments you have, you need to set up a schedule that works for you. So using those 3 philosophies, which one works best for you? The key thing that you need to keep in mind is that every single one of these modalities has a key combining factor, which is time blocking. Time blocking is essentially just putting time on your calendar at whatever interval works for you on a consistent basis, where you're just focusing on that one thing. What works best for me is setting something up early in the morning, where your willpower is strongest and you have the most mental energy. I find the farther throughout the day I go, the more I just want to lay on the couch and watch Netflix or chit chat with friends or do the tasks that I know I need to do throughout the day. So that's the how about going out and setting in to do deep work. The last thing that I want to share with you guys, the third bread idea, is the execution model. So we just talked about the different theories behind, kind of getting into the how. What I want to talk to you about is actually how to deploy deep work within that time block that you're setting up. And it's what Cal Newport in his book calls the 4DX model of execution. So there's 4 components to the execution model. The first and foremost one is that you want to focus on the wildly important. When you set up your time block, what is the number 1 priority in that time block that you can be setting up to accomplish? For me, I have a different theme every single day. One day might be working on a slide deck or a PowerPoint presentation for a speech I'm about to give. The next day might be writing an outline for a book. The third might be creating content or outlining these YouTube videos. Whatever it is, you want to have one main priority in that time block that you're focusing on, and solely that. And it needs to be the most important thing you could be focusing on in that day. The second, kind of step in the execution model is focusing on leading indicators. There's 2 types of indicators we have: leading indicators and lagging indicators. Lagging indicators are basically measuring something that, let me rephrase it in a different way. A lot of people track output, right? So for me, let's say my output is how many articles I write. If I focus on how many articles I write, that's what's called a lagging indicator. Because if I look at the end of the week and say I wrote 10, I only know about that after the fact. I can't control that variable to increase it or decrease it to make me more productive. It's kind of an afterthought. What we need to focus on is not lagging indicators, but leading indicators. Leading indicators are the inputs that we know we can turn up or turn down in order to have a direct impact on outcome, right? So a leading indicator would be how many days a week I spend writing. Or for me, what I track and what you should be tracking is how many hours of deep work am I spending every single week. And that way you know, if I turn the dial up on deep work hours, I'm gonna get a higher input. If I turn it down, I can get a less input. The third step in the execution model is basically keeping a good scoreboard. So keeping a good scoreboard, it allows you to check and make yourself accountable to the work that you're putting in. A lot of us lie to ourselves, and not so much in a bad way, but in a way that we think we're doing more than we actually are. And unless we have a scoreboard, we can't really keep objective track of how hard we're actually working or how much we're actually doing. So what we need to do is have a scoreboard. For me, I just have a notebook and a pen, and I write down how many hours of deep work I do every single day. At the end of the week, I tally it up and put it in a spreadsheet. That's how I keep track. Whatever that might be for you, figure out your own method. The fourth kind of step to this execution model is accountability and revisiting your scoreboard every single week. What I do is I have what I call a weekly L10 where I sit in every Sunday and I look at my scorecard to make myself accountable and see where I fell short or where I maybe exceeded. So every week I'll look and I'll say, okay, great, I did 7 hours of deep work this week. I need to hit 10. Or I might say, nice, I hit 15 hours of deep work this week. I know my productivity is gonna be off the charts. That's a good week. So you need to review it every single week to hold yourself accountable. And that's essentially the implementation within those deep work blocks to keep you accountable and make sure that you're executing at a high level to get those things done. So we covered a lot in this video. Let me quickly review it with you guys. In order to stay ahead and focus on the things and get things done that you need to be doing, you need to deploy deep work. Deep work is the focused, uninterrupted, non-distracted work that's cognitively demanding versus the shallow work, which is the busy work that we tend to stay focused on in today's modern society. In order to implement those things, there's 3 different ways we can implement deep work. We can hit the monastic modality, we can go into the bimodal modality, or we can go into the rhythmic modality. And then lastly, we need to execute in those time blocks. And we execute by essentially focusing on the wildly important. We need to keep track of the leading indicators. We need to create a scoreboard for those leading indicators and then review them frequently. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It's a lot of information. Let me know what you guys need clarity on in the comments or what you want to explore more with me in the comments. I hope you guys really enjoyed this video, and I will talk to you soon.